Hey guys, Adam Trigger here. It is Tuesday, and that means more free plays. SEC basketball, which we've done extremely well with the SEC plays on this show on Tuesday nights. And we're going to talk about one again. Last night on the college basketball show, two winners. Duke wins in a blowout. Montana ends up covering at the very end. So 2-0 on this show yesterday, and 1-0 for clients with Northern Arizona getting it done. These SEC Tuesday night sort of marquee games have been great. Finally got a client play winner last week with Georgia against Florida, and tonight we're going to talk about your SEC champions, number one Auburn, taking hitting the road to take on Texas A&M, and I think that's where we'll start. So Auburn wins over the weekend, blows out Kentucky, their sixth straight win, and they are now outright SEC champions. And of course, Texas A&M comes in pretty much the opposite. 4 straight losses, and they've played their way out of the very top of the SEC to, still easily in the tournament, still a top 25 team. But they've really fallen down, I think, to 6th now in the league after the loss to Florida over the weekend. I'm going to look at the total here, though, and I'll start by going back. So a couple things. One, if you go back to the last time these two teams played, which was last year, it was a 66-55 Auburn final. I believe it was their lowest scoring game of the entire season last year. Just quick math, 121 points, I believe, in that game, 122 points. So that's something that, I think the matchup might play out kind of similar. And, I do think it's important to note, Auburn definitely had their celebration over the weekend. They've sort of done everything that they could have possibly done already in the regular season, with the exception of they have a big rivalry game coming up this weekend with Alabama. So I really wouldn't be that surprised if Auburn kind of came out a little bit flat here. And if that's the case, to be honest, they could come out flat and they could still probably win this game by 5 or more. But I think if Auburn's flat, it's going to set the tone for this game to be a lower scoring game. Auburn they typically play faster. They can play slow, but Texas A&M has a very specific way they want to play and they want to attack teams. They do not shoot the ball well at all. Terrible three-point shooting team, terrible jump shooting team. For Texas A&M, it's all about getting to the rim and crashing the offensive glass, trying to generate some offense off of offensive rebounds, second chance points. And Auburn is a solid rebounding team. It's not going to be a gimme. I would still say Texas A&M maybe has a little bit of an edge on the glass, but not one that's big enough to just go and abuse Auburn in the paint. This is still an elite defensive team and an elite rebounding team. And that's where, so even if Texas A&M is getting what they want offensively, it's not going to be easy. And I do think that if Auburn is a little bit flat, it's more likely to show up in the pace of this game, because Texas A&M definitely wants to slow it down. 202nd, all the analytics have them outside of the top 200 in pace. So I do think you're going to get a slower game. For Auburn, I think you probably get Denver Jones out. So he picked up an injury over the weekend. Really doesn't make, he only played 8 minutes in the Kentucky game. Really makes no sense to play him here in a game that's somewhat meaningless. For Auburn. Doesn't make sense to risk him. And then on the other side, Texas A&M, you have to think Buzz Williams is in there just preaching, getting back to the defensive efficiency that got them here in the first place. This is a top, Texas A&M has been a top 10 defensive team all season. In their last 2 games, they gave up 86 to Vandy and 89 to Florida. I have to think that A&M at home in a massive spot for the home team is really just preaching defense the next few days in practice. And I just think that's going to lend itself to make this it's a really ugly game. Maybe a lot like last year's game, where Texas A&M couldn't break 60 and Auburn was terrible offensively the entire time. So I like this under. Haven't had a total of the day in a while, or even given out a total in a while, but they've been really good on the clock and on this show. So we're going to go under. I believe it's 151 right now, 151 and a half. And I think this game actually doesn't come anywhere near that. I think this might be played in the 60s. So maybe you get an under that's kind of a rocking chair one right here. but I do like under Texas A&M and Auburn. All right, $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk. I have a 4% play up as part of $5 Tuesday. I've also given out a 3% play on my On the Clock show that's going to be up, posted probably within the hour or right around the time you're seeing this. So check both of those out and head on over to wagertalk.com. The best deal we have on the site right now, in addition to $5 Tuesday, is all of the college basketball plays through the NCAA tournament final, which comes out to less than $5 a day. So you can do $5 for today, or you could take advantage of that college basketball special, and then it's basically $5 a day every day for the rest of the season. If you want to ride with me through March Madness, which hopefully we have a great March like we did a couple years ago when we finished number one at Wager Talk with after a monster March. I'm hoping to replicate that again this year. All right, let's head to the Big Ten and talk a bubble team in the Big Ten, which, man, my heart breaks for Rutgers. If Michigan doesn't nail a 40-footer at the buzzer, I think Rutgers is in the NCAA tournament. I think they should be in the NCAA tournament regardless, but that shot would have put them in. If he had missed, of course, I'm referring to Thursday night, Michigan hitting a buzzer beater 3 to beat Rutgers in Ann Arbor. If he misses that, Rutgers is already dancing. And it's something that I have kind of hyped up. I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. Rutgers has continued to sort of prove me right every step of the way. The last couple of weeks, starting with the road win at Washington, a blowout win over USC, and then really like playing good enough to beat Michigan. Again, just a heartbreaking result for them to lose that game at the buzzer. But I still think they're going to end up making the NCAA tournament, and I still think you want to try to find spots to back them along the way. Now, is this one of those spots? I don't know. Purdue is, going on the road at Purdue is tough. I look at this, like this would be like without a doubt, if Rutgers wins this game, they're in. If they don't, I'm going to like them this weekend. I believe they're home against Minnesota. That's going to be a much more appealing game. But the reason I want to talk about this game and kind of touch on the side and total is, like, first of all, Rutgers is playing better. There's no question about that. The offense has been good. Like, you have 2 lottery picks on this roster for Rutgers. Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. And you got to remember, Dylan Harper's been hurt for a lot of was hurt for a lot of the year. And I got to start to think, like, these two both know they're going to the NBA after this year. I got to think they start to look at this and say, listen, like, we're a game or 2 away from the NCAA tournament. We're going to go all out. I don't know that translates into Rutgers beating the better teams, but I do think it translates into good offense, which we've seen the entire way on this run. Even in the Michigan game, Rutgers scoring in the 80s. I believe they were in the 90s against USC. The offense has been great, and that should come as no surprise because you have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, who are both top 10 picks in the NBA draft. Where Rutgers has struggled this year is the defensive end of the floor. This is not your typical tough as nails Steve Pikiell Rutgers defense, and the reason for that is they've kind of had to accommodate the 2 superstar NBA guys in Bailey, who's very young and still sort of makes mistakes that a freshman would make, and then Dylan Harper, who's just more of an offensive player. And what Pikiell didn't do well this year was getting talent around these guys or complementary talent around this duo. The defense has been worse. The offense is coming around, but outside of Harper and Bailey, there's just not much. And that's why Rutgers will have games like the first game against Purdue, where I think Harper had an off game and the Rutgers offense just couldn't do anything. 68-50 final in that game was just a dreadful performance by Rutgers. So I want to see what happens with the market today. If Purdue takes money and gets bet up, I'd be inclined to take Rutgers because I do think they can keep it within single digits. But another way to look at this would just be to take the over because I've been really impressed with Rutgers' offense the last couple weeks, and I do think Purdue is probably going to score, maybe at will on this Rutgers team. But also Purdue really hasn't been great defensively recently. And again, like if you've watched Rutgers since the last 3 games, they've scored at will. Why would they not be able to score against a Purdue team that's struggling a little bit defensively? So I'll kind of throw 2 leans out there, over and Rutgers plus the points. I'm really not sure which one I like more, but those are just two sort of options for this game. My strongest of the leans on the show is going to be that under in the A&M Auburn game. And of course, if you want something I did actually play, it's $5 Tuesday. So head on over to WagerTalk and get one of my 4% top-rated college basketball best bets for just $5. Like and subscribe to the WagerTalk YouTube channel, and we will see you back here in the morning.